My name is Claire Hendricks. And the moment I realized my sister was trying to steal a dead man's house, I was sitting at my own desk, at my own job, doing a routine title search on a Thursday afternoon, when my grandfather's name came up in a county index he had no business being in. He had been dead for 19 days. The listing went live 4 days later. $374,000. For photos, Century Properties, and a lockbox, a realtor's lockbox, hanging off the front door of a house that my sister had never once owned. I looked at the Zillow notification for a long time. Then I opened my desk drawer, took out a manila envelope I had prepared 3 days earlier, and I went back to work.
Because here's the thing about my job.
I find buried things. That is quite literally what they pay me to do. Welcome back to Calm Drama Chronicles, where real families hit the exact moment when everything held together by silence and assumption finally comes apart. Out loud. In front of witnesses. If you are the quiet one, the one who notices, the one who shows up, the one who never gets the credit, you are exactly where you belong. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe if you are new. You are going to want to stay for this one. I am a title examiner at the Crestfield County Records Office.
6 years in that building.
Before that, for years interning there through college. A decade of my life spent in a place most people only visit once, usually when something has already gone wrong with a property they thought they understood. My job is simple in theory and brutal in practice. When someone wants to buy or sell land, I search its entire legal history. Every owner, every mortgage, every lien, every easement, every judgment, every amendment ever recorded against that parcel. I go back as far as the record goes. I read everything. I flag what does not fit. I find the documents people forgot were there. I find the documents people hope no one would look for. I find the ones filed quietly years ago that change everything about who actually owns what. My sister Diana once introduced me at a Christmas party as the one who does paperwork for the county. She said it the way you describe a relative whose job is too boring to explain properly. 3 people nodded. One asked if I liked it. I said yes. Diana had already moved on to talking about her kitchen renovation. I smiled and did not correct her. Not correcting Diana has never meant not knowing. It has always just meant waiting. To understand what happened to my grandfather's house, you have to understand what my grandfather's house meant and what Diana had decided it meant to her, which are 2 very different things. Grandpa Roy bought that house in 1981. 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, detached garage, a Craftsman on Linden Street that he paid off in 1999 and never once talked about selling. He was not a sentimental man in the way people perform sentimentality. He did not frame photos or give speeches at holidays. He was sentimental the way a well-built structure is sentimental. Quietly, load-bearing, the kind you only understand when something tries to knock it over. He had a workshop in the garage. Not a business, just a practice. He repaired furniture. Chairs, tables, cabinets, things people brought him because they were broken, and he believed broken things deserved to be fixed rather than replaced. He worked slowly, and he worked correctly, and he did not cut corners on anything ever, not once in his life.
He was the same way about people.
I grew up spending Tuesday afternoons at that house. My parents' marriage was the kind that filled a house with noise that had nothing to do with happiness, and when I was 12, I started riding my bike the 11 blocks to Linden Street just to be somewhere quiet. Grandpa Roy never asked why I kept showing up. He just handed me something to read, old deeds, old maps, old contracts from property disputes he had been involved in decades ago, and said, "Tell me what it says. Not what you think, what it says." I got very good at that. Diana did not spend Tuesday afternoons on Linden Street. Diana was busy with things that were louder and more photographable. And for a long time that was fine. Nobody required Diana to be interested in our grandfather's paperwork. The problem started the day she became very interested in his property value. She was 22 when she first said it out loud. We were at Thanksgiving. All of us crammed into Grandpa Roy's kitchen, and Diana was helping clear the table, and she said, casually, the way you say things you have been thinking about for a while, and are finally test running out loud. You know, this house must be worth something now. The neighborhood has really come up. Grandpa Roy was washing dishes. He did not turn around. He said, that was it. Diana waited for more. More did not come. She caught my eye across the table and gave me the look she gives when she thinks the adults in the room are being willfully obtuse, and I looked back at her and said nothing, and that was Thanksgiving. But Diana does not drop things.
She loops back.
She brings it up from different angles. She mentions it to our mother, who mentions it to Grandpa, who listens and says and goes back to whatever he was doing. She sends articles about the Linden Street neighborhood, rising property values, new coffee shops, a park renovation 2 blocks over. She starts calling the house the asset, which is a word that tells you everything about how a person sees a thing. And Grandpa Roy, every single time, listens and says very little and finds something else to do. I watched this happen for years. I said nothing. I filed it away the way I file everything, quietly, completely, in the part of my mind where things wait until they become relevant. Then Grandpa Roy got sick. Congestive heart failure, spring of last year. He was 79. His doctor was honest with him, which he specifically requested, and honest, in this case, meant a conversation about timelines that nobody in the family was ready to have. Diana was at that house within a week. She drove 4 hours from the suburb she lives in with her husband Kevin. Good school ratings, homeowners association, the kind of neighborhood where everyone's lawn is the same length because a letter arrives if it isn't. She came with a casserole and an agenda, and within 6 hours of arriving, she had rearranged the living room furniture, had a long conversation with Grandpa Roy that I was not in the room for, and had started referring to the house in the future tense. When we eventually have to think about this place, the smart thing would be to get ahead of it. Kevin knows a really good property manager, just in case. I was in the kitchen both times she said it. Grandpa Roy was in the living room. His responses came through the wall, quiet and brief, the way his responses always were when he was thinking about something else entirely. Diana left on Sunday. She hugged him at the door for a long time and told him she loved him and that she would handle everything. He didn't need to worry about a single thing. He patted her arm. She drove away. He came inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and asked me if I wanted to play cards. We played for 2 hours. He won 4 out of 5 hands. He did not say one word about Diana's visit. Neither did I. What I did not know, what nobody at that table knew, was that 3 weeks before Diana's visit, Grandpa Roy had called his attorney. His name was Elliot Hess. He had been Grandpa Roy's lawyer for 22 years. Small man, careful, gray suit, the kind of handshake that tells you he has held more confidences than he will ever disclose. Grandpa Roy had called him and said, I want to make sure everything is airtight. Before the family starts circling. That is not speculation. That is a direct quote from Mr. Hess's notes. Before the family starts circling. He had seen Diana coming. He had been watching her circle that house for years. And the moment his doctor gave him a timeline, he picked up the phone and called the one person in his life whose job it was to make sure documents meant exactly what they said. I did not know any of this yet. I just kept showing up on Tuesdays. The months after his diagnosis were a particular kind of slow. Grandpa Roy got smaller in the way people get smaller when their body is working too hard just to stay even. His hands had a tremor by August that was not there in March. He moved more carefully. He tired faster. But his mind stayed exactly as sharp as it had always been, sharp and dry and precise. The mind of a man who had spent 80 years paying attention and saw no reason to stop now. Diana visited twice in those months. The first time she brought a real estate agent. She did not announce this. She said she was coming for the weekend. She arrived with the agent presented as a friend. Oh, she was just in the area. She just wanted to say hi. And within 40 minutes, this friend was walking through every room with the practiced eye of someone calculating price per square foot. Grandpa Roy sat in his armchair the entire time. He watched. He said, When they left, He looked at me across the kitchen and said, "That was not a friend." I said, "No." He nodded, picked up his cards. We played for an hour. He did not bring it up again, but I watched something settle in his face that evening. Not anger, not hurt, something quieter and more final. The look of a man who has confirmed something he already suspected and is now deciding what to do about it. I did not ask what he was thinking. I have spent enough years reading documents to know when something is still being written. The second visit was worse. Diana came alone that time. Kevin stayed home, and she sat with Grandpa Roy for 3 hours in the living room with the door mostly closed, and I was in the kitchen, and I could hear enough. She was talking about the plan. His plan. Her version of it. It would be so much easier if we just got ahead of this now. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it. I would take care of everything, Grandpa, every single thing. His voice was harder to hear. Low, brief. The sound of a man who is listening without agreeing, which is a thing Diana has never been able to tell the difference between. When she finally came out of the living room, she looked satisfied in a specific way, the way she looks when she thinks a conversation has gone the direction she intended. She kissed him on the cheek. She told me to make sure he was eating enough. She drove back to the suburb. I went and sat with him. He was looking out the window at the backyard. The neighbor's dog was digging under the fence the way it digs every single day, the same corner, the same patient excavation, never making any actual progress. He watched it for a while. Then he said, "She means well." I said, "I know." He said, "Meaning well and doing right are not the same address." He never elaborated. We watched the dog dig. He died on a Wednesday morning in October, quietly, in his own bed, which is what he had asked for and what he got. My mother called me at 6:47. I was already awake. I drove to Linden Street and sat in the kitchen while the hospice nurse moved through the house, and I held my mother's hand and I put the fountain pen, the one Grandpa Roy had given me when I was 16, heavy brass, RWH engraved on the barrel, on the table in front of me because I needed something solid to look at. He had pressed it into my hand 15 years ago and said, "Sign nothing you haven't read, and read everything twice." At the time, I thought he was talking about contracts. I understand now he was talking about people. Diana arrived by noon. Her eyes were red at the edges. She hugged my mother for a long time, hugged me briefly, walked through the house slowly, touching things the way you take inventory when you think no one is watching. When she came back to the kitchen, her eyes had dried, and she said, "We should talk about the house. Not today, but soon." I picked up the fountain pen and put it back in my bag. Soon had already started. She just did not know I knew that yet. The funeral was 5 days later. 40 people. A reception at my mother's house after. Diana in the center of every room, receiving condolences with the practiced grace of someone who has cast herself as the lead in a production called Grieving Family. She is genuinely good at this. I want to be fair. She loved him in her way. The problem was never whether she loved him. The problem was what she thought love entitled her to. While Diana worked the room, I sat with Mr. Hess. He found me, not the other way around. He came and sat beside me on the couch by the window, and we talked about Grandpa Roy for a while. The real man, the quiet one. The one who repaired broken chairs because he thought broken things deserved better. And then Mr. Hess said, quietly, without looking at me, he was very organized, very thorough. "You'll want to be in touch next week." He said it the way you say something when the words are a door, and you're holding it open just slightly. I said I would call him Monday. He nodded, stood up, went to find my mother. Across the room, Diana was telling someone that she was going to make sure the house was taken care of. I watched her say it. My coffee went cold in my hand. Monday came. I called Mr. Hess at 9 in the morning from my car in the parking lot of the records office. He answered on the first ring. He said, "Before we speak further, I need to confirm something. Has your sister contacted you about the house?" I said, "Not directly. Not yet." He said, "She will. Probably this week. When she does, I want you to have already seen what I'm about to tell you. And he told me my grandfather had established a revocable living trust in 2013. 11 years ago, the house, the entire property on Linden Street, had been transferred into that trust at the time of establishment. Under the terms of the trust, Grandpa Roy remained the trustee, the owner, in full control for his lifetime. At his death, the property transferred automatically, outside of probate, outside of the estate, outside of any process that required a family meeting or a lawyer's letter or Diana's signature or Diana's awareness, to the successor trustee. What is the name on the successor trustee line? I asked. Mr. Hess said, Claire Marie Hendricks. I sat in my car in the parking lot. I said, he never told me. Mr. Hess said, he told me you didn't need to be told. He said, she'll find it. She reads everything. I just needed to make sure it was properly recorded before. He paused. Before the family started circling, I said, a silence. Yes, said Mr. Hess. His words exactly. I want to stop here and be honest with you about what I felt sitting in that parking lot. Not triumph, not vindication, not the satisfaction of years of being underestimated suddenly settling into something clean and justified. What I felt was grief. Pure, specific grief at the understanding that my grandfather had known, had watched, had seen Diana rearrange his furniture and bring a realtor dressed as a friend and sit in his living room for 3 hours talking about the plan, and he had seen all of it clearly, without illusion, and he had handled it the only way he knew how. Quietly, thoroughly, with documentation. He did not tell me because he trusted me to find it. He trusted that I would read. I sat in that parking lot for 15 minutes and missed him in a way that had nothing to do with the house and everything to do with the fact that he had known me well enough to leave me something without having to explain it, and now he was gone, and I would never be able to tell him I found it. Then I went inside. I pulled the trust document from the county index myself, full record, every page. I photographed it. I printed it. I put it in a manila envelope with the county seal. And I waited. Diana called 2 days later, not to ask how I was, not to ask if I was sleeping or eating or any of the questions people ask when they call to actually check on someone. She called because she had a plan and she needed either my cooperation or my silence, and in our family, those had always been the same request. I've been talking to a realtor, she said. The market is good right now. Really good. It makes sense to move quickly before winter. The carrying costs on a house like that. What carrying costs? I said, property taxes, utilities. It adds up. There's a reserve account in the trust, I said. It covers property taxes. Silence. Long silence. What trust? Diana said, not which trust. Not what do you mean? What trust? She did not know it existed. She had spent 11 months since the diagnosis, maybe longer, maybe years, making plans and calculations and arrangements for a house she had never once thought to look up in the public record, had never once asked about, had never once considered might have a legal history she was not part of. She moved fast. She did not read. I said, there's a family meeting Sunday. Mom mentioned it. I'll be there. Claire, what trust are you? Sunday, I said. Bring Kevin. I hung up. 4 days later, the listing went live. $374,000. Century Properties. A lockbox on my grandfather's front door. She listed a house she did not own. She did not even know she did not own it. I got the Zillow notification at 7 in the morning. I looked at it. I picked up the fountain pen from my nightstand. I put it in my shirt pocket the way he always wore it, barrel down, clip up, initials catching the light. Sunday was 3 days away. I had work to do. Okay, next part Lico. 1:49 a.m. Sunday came gray and cold. The kind of October morning that feels like the sky has made a decision and is not interested in discussing it. I was up at 5:30. Not because I had set an alarm, because I had not really slept. Not from anxiety. From the particular alertness that comes when you have been building towards something for weeks and the day has finally arrived and your body understands before your mind does that today is not a normal day. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened the manila envelope and went through the documents one more time, not because I needed to, I had read them enough times that I could recite them, but because reading is the thing I do when I need to be certain.
It is the discipline he taught me.
You do not go to the closing table on memory. You go with the document in your hand. The trust instrument. Clean, complete, every page in order. The county recording stamp. October 14th, 2013. Filed. Indexed. Publicly available to anyone who looked. The successor trustee line. My name. My full legal name, middle name included. The one that only appears on documents. I put everything back in the envelope. I picked up the fountain pen from the table. RWH on the barrel. Worn at the clip from decades of shirt pockets. Heavy the way things are heavy when they have been used completely and honestly for a long time. I put it in my shirt pocket, barrel down, clip up, the way he always wore it. I drove to Linden Street. I smelled the coffee before I got to the porch. Diana had arrived early. Of course she had. I came up the front steps and stopped at the door and looked at the lockbox, brushed steel, combination dial, hanging off the handle of my grandfather's front door like a declaration, like a thing that had always been there and always would be. I looked at it for exactly the amount of time it took to decide that the lockbox was a conversation for later and the conversation for now is inside. I used my key, the one Grandpa Roy had given me years ago, the one that lived on my keychain so permanently I had stopped noticing it was there, and I went in. The house smelled like it always smelled. Coffee and wood and the specific combination of old paint and clean air that I had been breathing since I was 12 years old and had never once been able to describe accurately to anyone who had not stood in that kitchen. Diana had rearranged the living room.
Of course she had.
The armchair that had been by the window, his armchair, the one he sat in to watch the backyard, the one with the worn patch on the right armrest where his elbow rested for 30 years, had been moved to the corner. The couch was angled differently. The side table with the lamp was gone entirely, replaced by a small staged arrangement of books that did not belong to anyone in this family. She had staged the house. She had staged my grandfather's house for a real estate showing while the family was gathering for a meeting about his estate. I stood in the doorway and looked at the armchair in the corner and felt something move through me that I did not have a clean name for. It was not quite anger. It was older than anger. The feeling of watching someone handle something carefully kept and built slowly and not once understand what they were holding. I set the manila envelope on the kitchen table. I sat down. They arrived in pieces. My mother first, already tired, already folded into the particular posture she takes when Diana is running something, shoulders slightly inward, eyes slightly down, the posture of a woman who has agreed to everything in advance and is just waiting for it to be over. She saw the manila envelope on the table. She looked at me. I gave her nothing. Just, "Good morning, Mom." She sat down and wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. The aunts next, Patrice and Gwen, my mother's sisters. Patrice sat on the couch and immediately started reading the room the way she always reads rooms, quietly and completely, not saying anything yet but storing everything. Gwen brought a coffee cake that she set on the counter and that no one would touch for a long time. Then Kevin. Kevin came in ahead of Diana, which meant Diana had sent him ahead, her standard move when she wants a room pre-settled before she makes her entrance. He stood by the window with his phone and nodded at me, and I nodded back, and we did not speak, which was fine because Kevin and I have always understood each other in the specific way of two people who are both paying close attention and both pretending not to be. Diana's friend Melissa came in behind Kevin. She had no reason to be there. She was Diana's emotional support and her witness and possibly her audience, and she sat in the armchair near the bookcase with the careful expression of someone who has already started calculating how quickly she can leave. And then Diana. She came through the door like she always comes through doors, like the room was waiting for her, like the air rearranged itself slightly in her direction. She was wearing the blazer. The one she wears when she wants to be taken seriously. Hair pulled back. Yellow legal pad under her arm. 2 pens clipped to the top. Not fountain pens, plastic ballpoints. The kind you use when you are planning to write a lot because the writing is the point and not the instrument. She had a list. I could see it from across the room. Handwritten. Organized by category. Living room.
Kitchen.
Workshop and garage. Personal items. Furniture. Keep versus sell. My grandfather had been dead for less than 4 weeks. His workshop was already in a column. Diana looked at me, gave me the smile. The warm one, the performance of warmth, the one calibrated to communicate that she is generous and reasonable and whatever is about to happen is going to be handled with grace. Claire, she said.
Good.
We're just getting started. I can see that, I said. She looked at the manila envelope on the table. Just for a second. The way you look at something you have noticed, but decided not to ask about yet. Then she clicked her pen and turned to the room. Okay, Diana said.
So,
The reason I wanted us all here, Diana, I said.
she stopped.
Looked at me. I kept my voice completely level. The way I keep my voice when I am reading a title report to a client who is not going to like what I found.
Calm. Clear.
No performance in either direction. Before we talk about anything else, I said, I need to tell you about the trust. The room shifted. Not a sound, a pressure change. The way a room feels when a window opens somewhere and the air moves and everyone feels it before they understand what happened. Kevin looked up from his phone. Aunt Patrice went very still. My mother's hands tightened around her mug. And Diana smiled wider. The specific wider smile. The one that means she is recalibrating, regrouping, about to redirect. I have been watching that smile my whole life. I know exactly what it means. It means she has decided the thing you said is not a threat yet, and she is going to handle it by making it small. We don't need to go into legal details right now, she said, smooth and reasonable. That's what the estate process is for. Mr. Hess will walk us through everything in due course. There is no estate process for the house, I said. Silence. What does that mean? Aunt Patrice said. I opened the manila envelope. I took the documents out the way I take documents out at work. Clean, ordered, no drama in the handling because the content is the drama and the handling should stay out of the way. I spread them on the kitchen table so that everyone seated could see the header. The Roy W. Hendricks Revocable Living Trust. Established October 14th, 2013. Grandpa established a living trust 11 years ago, I said. The house was transferred into that trust at the time of establishment. At his death, ownership transferred automatically to the successor trustee. Outside of probate. Outside of the estate. Outside of any process that requires a family meeting or a lawyer's involvement. I let that land for exactly 1 second. I am the successor trustee. My name has been on this document for 11 years. It is recorded with Crestfield County. Any person in this room can walk into the records office Monday morning and pull it themselves. What happened next happened in layers. The first layer was confusion, the honest kind, the kind that is not performance. My mother said I don't understand, not to me but to the room. The way she says things when she needs them translated into a voice she trusts more than mine. Aunt Gwen said Roy had a trust? Like the concept itself was surprising. Kevin put his phone in his pocket. Both hands free now. The posture of a man who has just understood this is a different kind of meeting than he prepared for. The second layer was Diana. She crossed the room in 4 steps and picked up the top page and read it. Or scanned it, which is not the same thing, her eyes moving fast across the lines the way eyes move when they are looking for the exit rather than the meaning. I watched her get to the successor trustee line. I watched her stop. She set the document down. She looked at me. And here's the moment. Not the argument that followed. Not the raised voices or the accusations or Kevin's attempt at damage control. This moment, right here, 3 seconds long before any of that. Diana looked at me across our grandfather's kitchen table, and for the first time in my life, she did not look like the person who had everything figured out. She looked like someone who had just understood, too late, completely too late, that she had been so certain of the outcome that she had never once stopped to check whether the game she was playing was the game that was actually happening. She moved fast. He planned slowly. She assumed.
He documented.
And she had never read a single thing. 3 seconds. Then her face went completely still. And then she opened her mouth. You did this. Not loud.
Not yet.
The volume of something deciding how loud to get. You went behind everyone's back. You got to him when he was sick and you manipulated. Diana.
Do not Diana me right now.
He was not in his right mind. Everyone in this family knows he hadn't been himself for months, and you took advantage of a dying old man too. He established the trust in 2013, I said. He was 68 years old. He had just refinanced the house, and he met with Mr. Hess specifically to update his estate plan. I have the notarization date, the witnessing signatures, and his physician's documentation of mental competency that he requested as part of the process. Would you like to see any of that? I don't care about. Kevin, I said. Kevin had been in finance for 12 years. He understood documents. He understood what properly executed, witnessed, notarized, and recorded for 11 years meant in practical terms whether he wanted to or not. The trust was executed in 2013, I said, looking at him directly. It has been on public record for 11 years without challenge. You can contest it. I would recommend calling an attorney Monday morning and asking them specifically what contesting a properly recorded 11-year-old trust instrument looks like, what it costs, and what the realistic likelihood of success is. Kevin looked at the document.
He looked at me. He looked at Diana.
He said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. Diana turned away from me, toward my mother. The move I had watched her make my entire life. When the main argument stopped working, turn to the audience. Make it about loyalty. Make it about family. Make it about something that cannot be cross-referenced against a county record. Mom, she said. Her voice dropped. Softer now. The daughter voice. The one that had always worked. Mom, are you going to let this happen? This is Grandpa's house. This is our family. She is taking something that belongs to all of us, and she is... My mother looked up from her coffee mug. She looked at Diana. She looked at me. She looked at the documents on the table, at the header, at the county seal, at the notarization stamp, at the name on the successor trustee line in plain black ink that had been sitting in a public record for 11 years while Diana rearranged furniture and brought realtors dressed as friends and sat in the living room for 3 hours talking about the plan. And my mother, Sandra Hendricks, who had spent my entire childhood managing the distance between her 2 daughters by giving the louder one what she wanted, said something I had not prepared for. She said, Diana. He put her name on it. 11 years ago, he sat down with a lawyer, and he put her name on it. Diana stared at her. Mom, I'm not a lawyer, my mother said. Quiet, looking back down at her mug. I don't understand all of it. But I knew your grandfather for 53 years. And if he put someone's name on something 11 years ago and never changed it, he meant it to stay. The room went very quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when the person everyone expected to fold does not fold. Aunt Patrice was reading the documents now, 1 page at a time, slowly. Aunt Gwen had stopped looking at her coffee cake. Melissa was examining her own hands with the intense focus of someone deeply regretting every decision that led to this room. Kevin cleared his throat. Diana, he said carefully. Maybe we should. Don't, Diana said. 1 word. Flat as a closed door. She was still looking at my mother. Then she turned back to me. And she said the thing. The real thing, underneath all the legal arguments and the maneuvering and the plans. The thing that had been true for years and had never once been said out loud in this family. You always wanted to be his favorite, she said. That is what this is. You couldn't stand that everyone loved me more, so you spent years getting into his ear and turning him against his own family, and now you're standing here with your little envelope acting like you did something impressive. He gave me this, I said. I took the fountain pen out of my shirt pocket. I set it on the table in the center, where everyone could see it. Heavy brass. Worn at the clip. RWH on the barrel. He gave me this when I was 16, I said. He told me, sign nothing you haven't read, and read everything twice. I have done that every day of my professional life. And 3 weeks ago, doing my job on a Thursday afternoon, I found a document with my name on it that has been sitting in a public record for 11 years. I looked at her. I did not take anything from you, Diana. I found what he left. There is a difference. He understood the difference. That is exactly why my name is on the document and not yours. Diana's mouth opened. My phone rang. 2 o'clock. I had called Mr. Hess the night before and asked him to be available at 2 o'clock Sunday. I had texted him at 11 that morning when Diana's car appeared in the driveway. He was a punctual man. I answered and put it on speaker and set the phone next to the fountain pen and the manila envelope in the center of the table. Mr. Hess, I said, you are on speaker. The family is here. Good afternoon, said Mr. Hess. His voice on speaker sounded exactly like his voice in a room, unhurried, steady. The voice of a man who has sat across from enough grieving and angry families that he has stopped being surprised by either. I want to confirm several items for anyone present who has questions about Roy Hendricks' estate planning. The kitchen was completely silent. Even Diana was not moving. The Roy W. Hendricks Revocable Living Trust was established October 14, 2013. At that time, Roy was 68 years of age, in good health, and of sound mind. His physician documented this as part of the estate planning process at Roy's specific request. He asked for that documentation himself. Claire Marie Hendricks was named successor trustee at that time. That designation was reviewed and confirmed by Roy on multiple occasions over the following 11 years, most recently approximately 8 weeks before his death, when he called my office to ensure the instrument was current and properly recorded. Kevin sat down in the nearest chair, which happened to be Aunt Gwen's chair. She shifted without a word to make room. At that final call, Mr. Hess continued, I asked Roy if he wished to make any changes to the trust. He said no. I asked him if he was certain. He said, and I am reading from my notes directly, Diana moves fast. I love her, but she has never once read a document in her life. The house goes to the one who reads. Silence. Absolute silence. The kind that fills a room completely. Wall to wall, no gaps. Diana was standing at the window. The same window she had pointed at 2 weeks ago while talking to a realtor about what the light would look like in listing photos. Her face had moved through several expressions in the past 30 seconds and had arrived somewhere I could not name precisely. Not grief, not anger, something that was both of those things and also older than both of them. The expression of someone hearing the truth about how they have been seen by someone who loved them and could not change what they saw. He loved her, I said quietly to the room, to no one specifically. That was never the question. Mr. Hess said, Claire, the trust administration documents will be ready for your signature Wednesday. My office will call to schedule. I will be there, I said. Good afternoon, said Mr. Hess. The call ended. Outside in the backyard, through the kitchen window, the neighbor's dog was at the fence. Same corner, same patient digging. The excavation that never got anywhere and never stopped. Grandpa Roy had watched that dog from this window for 3 years. He always found it funny. I found it funny now, too. Diana left first. Not loudly. Not with a slammed door or a final word or the dramatic exit the room had been braced for through the entire meeting. She just picked up her legal pad from the coffee table, the one with the categories, the one that said workshop and garage in a column, and she looked at it for a moment. Just looked at it. The list she had written. The future she had arranged in neat handwritten categories before she had ever once looked at who actually owned the things she was arranging. Then she set it back down on the coffee table. She walked to the front door. She opened it. She went out. Kevin followed 2 minutes later, after looking at me with an expression that was not quite apology and not quite acknowledgement but was somewhere in the territory of both, and then looking away, and then leaving. Melissa left immediately behind Kevin with the speed of someone who has been holding very still near an exit for 45 minutes.
The door closed.
Aunt Patrice exhaled. A long, slow breath, the kind that has been held for a while. Aunt Gwen cut the coffee cake. And my mother sat at the kitchen table and looked at the documents spread in front of her, and then looked at me and said, in a voice smaller than her usual voice. She didn't know.
I know, I said.
She really didn't know he'd done this. I know, Mom. A pause. He never told me either, she said.
I thought about that.
About my grandfather sitting at this table for 11 years with a trust recorded at the county and a name on a document, and his whole family making plans around him, and saying nothing. Not because he was cruel. Not because he wanted this day to happen exactly this way. Because he trusted the document to speak for him. To the person who would find it. He told you, I said gently. He told you the way he told things. My mother looked at the fountain pen on the table. She looked at it for a long time. Then she reached out and pushed it toward me slowly. The way you return something that was never really yours to hold. The listing came down 4 days later. I was at my desk at the records office doing a routine title search when the Zillow notification arrived. Listing removed. 9:14 in the morning. I looked at it. I thought about 11 years. About a trust instrument filed on a Tuesday in October 2013 and sitting in a county index quietly, correctly, waiting. About a man who repaired broken things because he believed broken things deserved better. About the way he used to look at me across a kitchen table and say, tell me what it says, not what I thought, not what I felt, what it said. I closed the notification. I went back to work. Diana did not contest the trust. Her attorney, she called one, Kevin confirmed this through my mother the following week, reviewed the instrument, reviewed the recording history, reviewed the 11-year window with no prior challenge and the documented mental competency at execution, and told her what any competent attorney would tell her. She thanked him and did not call again.
She has not called me.
I do not expect she will. Not soon. Maybe not ever in the way that sisters are supposed to call each other, the easy calls, the nothing calls, the calls that are not about anything in particular. Those may be gone. I cannot know yet, and I am not going to pretend I know. What I know is that I am not willing to perform a forgiveness I have not yet found in order to make someone comfortable with what they tried to do. That is not cruelty. That is just honesty. The door is not locked. But I am not going to stand in the frame and wave. My mother comes to the house on Sundays now. She sits in the kitchen in her chair, the one she has always sat in, the one that was hers before any of this happened. And we have coffee and I fix whatever needs fixing, and sometimes she brings up Diana carefully, the way you press on something to see if the healing has started. It has not healed. Not for her. I give her time. Aunt Patrice called me the week after the family meeting. She said, without preamble, he picked right. 40 seconds total. She hung up. She has never used more words than necessary, which is something I have always respected about her. I did not sell the house. I know that is what some of you are wondering. Whether I kept it or turned it into the transaction Diana had already priced it at. Whether sentiment won over practicality. It was not sentiment. It was something more specific than that. I moved in 3 months after he died. Gradually, the way you move into a place that was already full of a life before yours and needs to be entered carefully. I kept his furniture. I kept the workshop exactly as he left it. Every tool hung where he hung it, the workbench with its permanent linseed oil stain, the chairs in various stages of repair lined up against the wall like patients waiting. I've been working through them, one at a time, the way he would have. I fixed the garage door the first month. The lien it had developed over 3 summers, the one Grandpa Roy and I had discussed and scheduled and rescheduled and never quite gotten to. I fixed it on a Saturday morning in November with the tools from his workshop, and I thought about him the entire time, about all the things you mean to do with someone and run out of Saturdays to finish. I finished it. Some things only get done after. The neighbor's dog still digs under the fence. Same corner. Same daily optimism. Same complete lack of progress. I find it funny the same way he did. Every morning before I leave for work, I take the fountain pen off the nightstand and put it in my shirt pocket. Barrel down, clip up, RWH on the barrel catching the light when I lock the front door.
Sign, nothing you haven't read.
Read everything twice. People ask me why I did not confront Diana the moment I found the trust. Why I waited. Why I let her list the house, let her prepare the legal pad, let her walk into that family meeting thinking she had already won. The answer is simple. I am a title examiner. My entire professional life is built on one principle. The document either says what it says, or it does not. You do not argue with a properly recorded instrument. You do not raise your voice at a notarization stamp. You let the record speak, and then you let the people in the room decide what to do with what it says. Diana is loud. She has always been loud. She fills rooms, and she moves fast, and she makes plans in advance, and she brings the right blazer and the right pens, and she stages the furniture for maximum effect. And none of that, not one single part of it, changes what is written in a county index. My grandfather understood this. He built his protection in the one place Diana never thought to look. Not in a conversation. Not in a family meeting. Not in a letter or a speech or a moment of honest confrontation that Diana could have talked her way around. In a document. Filed correctly. Recorded permanently. Available to anyone willing to read. He left me the house. He also left me the pen. I think if you asked him which one mattered more, he would be quiet for a moment, the way he was quiet before he said something he meant, and then he would say the pen. Because the pen is the habit. The house is just what the habit protects. I use it every single day. That is my story. If you made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. If you are the one in your family who reads the fine print, who shows up on the quiet days, who fixes things without being asked and without being thanked, I want you to know that someone sees it. Sometimes the person who sees it most clearly is the one everyone else has already written off. Pay attention to those people. Drop a comment and tell me, are you a reader or a mover? Because I think most of us know which one we are. I read every comment. If this story hit something real for you, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear it. Subscribe if you are new. There are more of these. They do not get simpler. I will see you in the next one.